In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create an ID map for your model in Substance Painter. So what is an ID map? Essentially, this is a baked texture map that contains solid color information and is essentially used in Substance Painter to instantly create masks on your model. So before I show it in Substance Painter, let's see how to set it up in Blender first. So what we usually do in Substance Painter is we usually have like a high poly version of the model and a low poly version. We usually kind of extract all the sort of the high details from the high poly onto the low poly. But what we're going to do here instead is we're going to just have like a main and an ID map or an ID version essentially. So we're going to create something like this. So just really quickly, I'm just going to Shift D to make a copy of this and show you what I did. So first things first, it's really important that the objects are named correctly. So you want to make sure that it's named appropriately. So I'm going to call this ID, but I'm going to put it as lowercase for now. So I know that the main, that's the main model that I'm using. The ID model is for essentially the ID map and also for baking other texture maps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter edit mode by pressing tab, and I'm going to press 3 for face mode. Now, I've already UV unwrapped this. This has got all the seams, etc. Placed, and you can see as well here that it's all nicely UV unwrapped. You can't do anything in Substance Painter unless you UV unwrapped your model. So on this barrel, I want these bits here, these rims, to all be metal. So I want to be able to focus on these in Substance Painter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the areas that I want to be metal. So I'm going to select this intersection here. So I'm going to hold down Alt so I can select the whole circle. And then what I'm going to do is because I have a seam here and a seam there, I can actually press L on the keyboard, just hover over this area here, and what that does is that it will select the link. So it's selecting the seam. So everything that's within the seam is going to select. And if I hover over here and press L again, I don't even have to hold shift to select multiple of it. It automatically just adds it to the selection. So I've still got this inner ring selected here, this section selected, and then I'm going to go down here and press L again to select these here, L to select this bottom part. And I'm going to hold Alt for this section, otherwise it will deselect everything else. So I'm going to just click on this face here. It's also, I had to make sure I hold down Shift, Shift and Alt. Click here. And now I have all of these areas selected. So now I want to assign a material to this section. So what I'm going to do is, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to create like a new material. I'm going to create a new one, and then I'm going to press new, and I'm going to call this metal section just to make it a bit easy. I'm going to change the color to blue and press assign. So now I have this section assigned blue. And now for the wooden sections, I'll just use this one here. I'm going to press L to select all these sections, the remaining sections, and I'm going to change the color to like a brown or a red. Now, it's really important that when you're creating your IDs is that you're using different colors. You don't want to have like a similar blue, like a lighter blue or like a just a slightly different hue of this blue. Otherwise, Substance Painter isn't going to know what's what essentially. So you always want to have stark contrasting colors so that way it's easy for Substance Painter to interpret the colors. So once we're happy with that, so let's say, okay, so the red part's going to be the wood, the blue part's going to be the metal. What we want to do next is we want to export these out. So I'm going to select the model, pressing A, file, export, FBX, make sure limited to selected objects. Then I would call this wooden barrel ID, and I would export that. Then on my main barrel, let me just assign a new material to this. And we'll go to File, Export as main. Now I want to go back into Substance Painter. I'm going to do File New. I'm going change the resolution to 2048, select my model. So I want to use my main, which is my low poly one, and then press OK. Next, what I want to do is I want to go to the texture set settings, bake mesh maps, and want to make sure that I'm in the common settings. So where it says bake mesh maps, make sure you're on common settings. Go to output size. I'm going to make sure the same size as my material, which is 2K. And then here we've got the high poly parameters. So we're going to load in our ID. So I already did one earlier, so I'm going to use this one here. ID. And then we want to make sure that we're matching the correct name. So the low poly is our main. So I need to make sure this is underscore main. This is why it's important to make sure that things are named correctly. I'm going to call this ID. We can add some anti-aliasing as well. So I'm going to just put a little bit on there. And you can see this little cage here. So if I increase it, so it will bake texture maps within this area here. We don't need to change it that much. So I think we can keep it at 0.01. Now add the mesh map bakers. You want to make sure that ID map is on. You can turn on like height as well and bent normals. But I would probably just keep it to these ones. These are kind of your most important ones. With ID selected, if you go back to mesh maps, you can change the color source. So for instance, if you're using vertex color, you can change that. You can just use file ID, but material color will be fine. By default, it's on material color. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to press bake selected maps. Return back to paint mode. And you'll see now that if I go to this drop down menu and change to ID, you'll see now that I have this ID map here. So how does this work essentially? So what I can do here is, if I'm going to go back to material, so I'm going to add, actually I'm going to just go to say wood, we'll add that, and then we'll also add a metal. Let's go something like this. So right now I have some metal and I have some wood, but I want it to be divided into the appropriate sections. So what I can do is I can go to mask and the second to last option, which is add mask with color selection. So if I click on this and if I go on this color selection, if I pick color, what it does then, it will switch over to the ID version and I can pick which color I can mask. So we've got a black mask on at the moment. If I press blue here, you'll see now that it has masked out everything except what has the blue ID color map assigned to it. And I don't have to do the same here. I could do the same here, for instance, if I wanted to. So I'm going to add a color selection, pick the red. So you can see here now that it's only using the red section. So it's a nice way of kind of breaking down more your complex models with uh, ID maps as well. So hopefully you can see how a ID map can be really useful for masking out specific parts of a model, especially if you have something that's really complicated and it has like numerous different parts and there's probably areas that you want to specifically focus on that you want to mask out to make sure it's not being influenced by other materials. ID maps are really useful tools to use. But if you don't have an ID map, there is another way of doing masking options. So you can use something called the polygon fill. So let me just remove the color selection here. So with the black mask selected, what I can do is if I just go back here, you have all these different options here. If you hover over them, you'll see you'll get like a little name from. You have like say like eraser, paint along path. We have this option called polygon fill. Now this allows us to select different parts of our model based on either say the UV shells, the actual mesh itself, or its polygon or triangle faces. So for instance, if I just select polygon fill here, and if I just press here, you can see that I'm actually essentially painting onto the black mask. So obviously right now it's on white. If I go to black, I can just remove those sections, but it's doing it based on the polygon faces. But I can change it to say mesh fill. So obviously this is just one mesh. If I click on it, it will do the whole model. but I can also do the actual UV shells because I've always UV unwrapped it. I can say, okay, I want this shell to be separated, this part, and this part as well. So if you have your UV wrapping done correctly, you could also use this as a way to mask out areas of your model as well in Substance Painter.